All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Angular NYC and Angular Minsk meetup. We're doing this collab together, which I'm very excited about. This is also
hello, everyone. Welcome to the
Angular
NYC and Angular Minsk.
Okay. Yeah, as you noticed already, probably this is our first time doing an online meetup. So let's see how it goes. I'm very excited about that. We haven't had the meetup since February. I'm going to share my screen in a second with the slides that we have. Screen. Perfect. Okay. Now I need to find them somewhere. Oh, here you go. All right. Here are the slides. So welcome to this Angular NYC and Angular Minsk meetup together. We have code of conduct. Basically, it applies to chat as we don't have anything in person today. Here are the organizers who make this happen. I also want to help Aliaksei, who did a lot of work on this. His talk will be last, but he found the speakers, and he's also, like, I can say he's an organizer. We do need help to make more events happen. So if anybody is interested in organizing events, please talk to me. And maybe next time you'll be hosting this kind of event. This is on Angular Code Lab. This is interactive online tutorial for beginners. So if you're interested in learning Angular, this would be a great place to start. Just go to Code Lab Fun. It's interactive, and it's a quick way to get yourself started with Angular. I would like to thank Zen Digital, which Daniel from Zen Digital started this meetup, and they keep supporting us. And I would also like to thank Narwhal, who is our sponsor. They create tools which allow developers to develop like Google. Check them out. We have social media, Twitter, we have YouTube. This is where you can see us now. And we have a Slack chat. Everybody is welcome to join. We have 3 amazing speakers today. All of them are from Minsk, Belarus, except Aliaksei, who is right now in Sydney. So he had to wake up at like 2 or 3 a.m., some like crazy time. We'll talk about pre-rendering. We'll talk about Scully, 2 lightning talks. And then the last talk will be Aliaksei about NGXS, progressive state management. In the end, we'll also have a raffle. I'll show this on the screen during breaks, but we have not just one, but I think it's 2 or 3, because we're combining our JetBrains licenses. AngularMinsk also chimed in. So go to this link and then sign up, and we'll raffle out a few licenses. You'll get an email from us. This is the last slide. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Konstantin. You can see how I press buttons. Yeah. I'm removing myself. All right. Hello, Konstantin. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yep, I can.
So,
I can hear you.
Konstantin, straight from Minsk. Go ahead, Konstantin.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Hello, everyone. This talk is about pre-rendering your Angular app easily and everything about it. My aim today is to show you some examples, some pros and cons, and how to easy to integrate it in your project. Yeah, everyone is a bit tired of just another Angular 9 feature, but believe me, this one is worth to mention and make some explanation. Yep, that's me. I'm a full stack dev from Kotlix company, which is based in Minsk, Belarus. Okay, let's start. Let me just remind you base index HTML file, which is used by Webpack to put bundle links to put bundle file as links in the end. Let's check how this works in a pure Angular app. First of all, browser request our site. We get basic HTML, which is similar to the one from the previous slide. As the links are in the end of this file, we have to wait until our scripts are downloaded. And we are waiting. As you can see, we are still seeing some like preview of our site. And after that, we have to wait our scripts are executed. And all of this time we are waiting. And after 2 hours later, we are able to see our page. Okay, it takes about 1.5 seconds to do everything and to start to work with our site. Universal is way better. Okay, how it works? First of all, we do a request to our server. We wait until it's rendered. Basically, it means that the whole page is rendered, and we'll receive a snapshot from server. But it is not interactable yet. Of course, we need to request our scripts to wait until downloaded and then executed. And after that, our page is alive. It takes about 600 milliseconds for us to take the first snapshot of our page. Great, let's move on. Universal Prerender approach is even faster. Let me give you a core concept. Snapshot HTML files are precompiled during the build time. I mean that every page you have is rendered during your continuous integration process. And the cool thing is we don't need to wait while page is rendered on the server, because it is it's already done on the server during build time. Okay, and in the end, we can see that our page is fully visible just in 30 milliseconds. That's great result. Just a couple of words about performance. Looks like that. After HTML downloaded, site is visible, but not interactive yet. So taking into account that our internet connection is perfect, it will take about 1.5 for pure Angular, about 600 milliseconds for universal, and 30 milliseconds for prerender, just because prerendered files are static files. There are some things to think about is difference between universal and prerender version. Okay, so what is dynamic SSR good for? The main advantage is it is suitable for apps with dynamic content. But at the same time, if page is not cached, server generates response every time. And also additional server for serving our content is required. Okay, great. The next thing is static prerendering. Why it is good for us? Basically, it is easy to do. It's easy to start with CDN, to store it on CDN. And another advantage is we don't need to have a server, because all of the files are built during the build time. Unfortunately, it is not suitable for apps with dynamic content, but it is only the half of the truth, because you can use you can always use hybrid approach. You can generate as many pages as you want, and so on and so forth. If you want to start with Scully, if you want to start with prerendering, you should check out Scully. I'll give you a couple of points. It's possible to use JSON and Markdown as page content. And the main advantage is if your application uses such objects like document, window, navigator, or you use some third-party libraries which accesses the DOM, it's completely fine, because Scully doesn't think about it. But unfortunately, it is not possible in Prerender, because your application should not have all of these objects. The main advantage of Prerender is it is very fast. It is just insane. You can generate about 10,000 pages just in 75 seconds. Okay. Just to summarize, it depends really, because all of the techniques work pretty well, and you need to check all options before choosing one. Let's check how to bake it. I think that everyone knows about NGXS, and there is another feature which we can use is NGAdd. Just with this one line, everything, the whole necessary thing for Universal will be installed in your app. Just for example, there are routes and router module, and of course router links. For you to know, guest parser is a special tool which is under the hood of Prerender. It will check your application, and it will find all of the static pages. That's how it searches and creates and rendering all of the necessary pages. But of course, we have some dynamic content. We have products, we have articles. So that's why Prerender allows us to put all of these dynamic content pages into rows array. That's how you will handle dynamic rows. Okay, do not forget, another important point is transfer state. You really want to avoid executing your API twice. That's why you should use it. Do universal for dynamic pages. As from my experience, I can say that we always used this approach. I mean, hybrid approach. We had pre-rendered pages for static content, and we had dynamic SSR for dynamic pages. And you should know that guest parser is not an everything parser. It is just a tool, but you should handle everything manually. Okay, who need it? This tool, this pre-rendering is and SSR most commonly is used by those who are handling blogs, e-commerce, news websites, and any content website. So basically, it is very important for social media. For example, you want to share your link, and social media will check this link and try to figure out what content it can receive from your page. And so if you have server-side rendering, your social media will help you to make your site more popular. And of course, it is for those who want to increase perceived performance. I mean, if you have a lot of users, a lot of customers, and you want them to show your site very fast, of course, you need to consider about this tool. Okay, what about cons? Prerender doesn't know about dynamic roads. Angular bundle still should be downloaded, because if you want to do some API calls, if you want to do some interaction with a page, you need to download Angular bundle. Juniors will be shocked, it is for sure, and it is not for internal apps. I mean, you should not waste time for using it on your admin panels, dashboards, and so on. Okay, guys, thank you for attention, and I hope it was pretty useful for you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Konstantin. Great talk on pre-rendering. I'm looking forward to the next talk where Ilya will elaborate a little bit more, and we'll talk about Scully. And one thing I would also like to mention is that for some of the speakers, this is their first time speaking in English. Clearly, like English is not a native language for anybody in Belarus. So everybody, like many people, are learning new things today. I'm also learning things. I learned how to share the right screen. I'll do it next time. I see some questions in the chat. After all the talks, all the speakers will get together and we will answer all the questions from the chat. So please keep asking. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Ilya Ryabchinski, who will talk about Scully.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're live and we can hear you.
Okay, so hello everyone. Today I'm gonna be talking about Jamstack and Scully and what this brings to our lives as Angular devs. We have not so many times, so my talk would be mostly introductory and basic. Yeah, first about me. I've been working at SAM Solutions for several years as a front-end developer. Most of my experience is connected with Angular, and also from time to time I give talks at AngularMinsk, so thank you for having me here. And let's quickly kick off and start with Jamstack. So I hope mostly of you are familiar with this word, but honestly, I was surprised that in our area, Jamstack is not a popular approach. I would say that it's a new way. It's the way how to build modern static websites with the modern tools. Yeah, previously we usually used tools like CMS, like WordPress, Drupal, etc. And sometimes some teams use it still and it works. But I think that it's not a very performant solution and scalable way of doing static sites. So Jamstack has come to fix all these downsides. Yeah, Jam stands for JavaScript, API, and markup. It's easy. JavaScript, most of the dynamic functionalities are handled by JavaScript, like inserting some blocks in your DOM tree or starting animations. Yeah, there are no even restrictions on using some JavaScript library in your project. Then API is about server-side operations. It's about some CDN or Lambda functions for server-side operations. And markup, usually with Jamstack, your markup, your sites, your pages are served as HTML files, and as sources, you can use some Markdown, CSV, or JSON, anything. And you can also automate the deployment and build procedures, invent that would fit your needs. For example, you can start deploying or building on some new comments in Slack or on commits or merges to your GitLab branch. And big companies are also using Jamstack successfully. For example, Smashing Magazine, there is an article where they describe how they do it and why they migrated from WordPress. So this article will be available at the end of my presentation. So why such big companies choosing Jamstack? So first of all, it's SEO-friendly. Yeah, you have your HTML markup pre-rendered, and Googlebot or other crawlers can understand your content. Then again, it's performant because you don't send to your client just a div, just an empty div. You have all the content pre-rendered. It's cheap and scalable because you can use some Lambda functions or maybe CDN web services like Netlify. It's secure, yeah, because you don't need to handle such networking stuff like SSL certificates, HTTPS. It would be handled by these services like CDN, for example. And Jamstack currently has rich community support all around the world, a lot of communities. You can check it on their website. And it has been growing. Yeah, Jamstack ecosystem is really huge, but I was jealous because the most popular tools are connected with React and Vue. For example, Gatsby is the static site generator. It's React-based. It has a huge community and tons of plugins for every taste. But we've been waiting so long for Angular-based solution, and congratulations, now we have it. Yeah, it's called Scully. It's the static site generator for your Angular applications. Yeah, it's a bit similar to Prerender, but it has some conceptual differences. I will cover it a bit later. So just few comments. I'm going to show you how quickly add Scully to your project. It's just to put you in the context and to see it in action. Yeah, first of all, we generate Angular project, or we have existing one. Then we add Scully with such command. Then we can use built-in schematics like for block, or they have schematics for markdown sourcing. Yeah, they're all predefined and already implemented. Here we have new iGenerate module just for testing purposes. And here I'm gonna show you one of the main entities in Scully. It is route service. It's can be used by you. It's usually extends basic Angular router, and you can use it for showing navigation menu, for example. So how to build it? First of all, you need to generate your Angular SPA bundle for a single page application, and then run Scully or Scully serve command for a production bundle or for running it in development mode. Yeah, just quickly dive into some Scully parts, some Scully core parts. Here you can see Scully configuration file. You can play with it to change some Scully output. Yeah, for example, you can change your unhandled routes. Yeah, it would be helpful if you need to have some pages that should still remain to be a plain old single page application. Also, core of Scully consists of other components. The first is idle monitor service. What it does, it hooks into Zone.js, and when Angular goes idle, usually it means that all outgoing HTTP requests are finished. Scully triggers Puppeteer to pre-render your pages. And then, as I already mentioned, router is the thing where you can get all Scully routes in runtime. Then we have Scully content. This component inserts Scully output from Puppeteer to your HTML. It's just would be just a string. Yeah, and very important to mention that it's not working with ngIf directive, so please don't use it together. Then transfer state service, it's usually like similar like Angular Universal has, yeah, for sending some state from your server to client. And utility functions, if you want to do some operations after Scully is done, after this rendering is done, you can also use utility functions to know it. As I already mentioned, Scully uses Puppeteer for pre-rendering. Puppeteer is a Node.js library that provides like API for headless Chromium over DevTools. Yeah, you can also play with that Scully config and change some configurations for Puppeteer runtime. Also, Scully embraces a plugin system to help the developers to extend Scully or to teach it to handle some functionalities that is not implemented in core. Yeah, it has router plugins, file handler plugins, for example. The most that I found most useful is JSON plugin. It's already in core. Yeah, you can use this plugin for getting all the data from your backend services and then just pre-render it. So it means that when you send your pages to a client, you don't need the backend. You already have all your sources, all your information bundled, and pages are generated. And of course, you can write your plugin to, for example, to minify HTML or to source some data from CSV or other formats, anything that you want to do. Yeah, and almost the last thing is small comparison between Universal and Scully. Yeah, lucky me, because Konstantin has already done it. And yeah, Universal works like that. Yeah, we have application reference when our Angular app goes to stable state. Yeah, we render the page in the context of Node.js. It means like we have some universe, or we have some Express server to pre-render pages. Then we have it pre-rendered and send HTML to a client when somebody navigates to our URL. And Scully, it works in a bit different way. So it's separated from your Angular application, as I already said. You have a Scully config, you have Puppeteer to pre-render your pages, and it uses its internal services like idle monitor services that I already covered, and navigation and hook from router to know, is it okay? Is it ready to start Puppeteer? Then when Puppeteer is done, we have some events like Angular ready on window. Yeah, as Konstantin already mentioned, we have an access to window or other web APIs. And when Puppeteer is done, we insert our output in our HTML and send it to a client when somebody navigates to our URL. Scully goals, yeah, I found this information from one of creators of Scully. Yeah, it's usually like for most of Jamstack solutions, goals are there to be performant, to be scalable and cheap, to do it for 100% of Angular apps. Yeah, as I already showed, it require almost no effort to integrate just few comments, and you can pre-render your app. Also, it support Markdown and other content sources that it is also usual approach for Jamstack solutions. And of course, plugin ecosystem. You can play with it and teach Scully to do some stuff that you need. So in conclusion, I would like to ask a question: is it a production ready? And I don't know, honestly, because you may consider using universal, because it's more stable solution. Scully is so fresh, and yeah, currently we haven't introduced it in our team for our project, but we are still thinking about it. Anyway, everyone has a chance to participate in Scully involvement with contributions to Scully itself, or you can also build some fancy plugins that everybody will use. So here are links. First is Jamstack website, then some Scully docs, but please put most of your attention to the last one. It's the webinar from one of the creators of Scully. So hope with this talk I roused your curiosity on the subject of Jamstack and Scully, and thank you.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Ilya. Nice talk. I'm actually have a project where I would like to try Scully, so I'm excited. Just a few slides before we transfer to Aliaksei. First of all, I would like to talk about Angular NL conference, which is happening on July 24th. It's online. It's going to be pretty cool. And we are going to raffle one ticket. So you have to go to this website. Oh, it's in the next slide. Yeah, you have to just go here. For community, you can put Angular NYC or AngularMinsk, whatever you think is more appropriate. And then, yeah, they will raffle out one ticket per community. That's my understanding. And we have our own raffle, as I mentioned before, JetBrains. Follow this URL. And also there was like one speaker which participated today, but I didn't have to introduce, and this is Pixie. You might have heard Pixie during Konstantin talk. Pixie had a lot to share, so here are some photos. So now Pixie has a face. Yeah, so one more time, the raffle link is here. I leave it for 5 seconds. Actually, I don't have to do it because people can just scroll back. So then I'm going to switch to Aliaksei, who will tell us about NGXS. Hello, Aliaksei.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Right. So, yeah, it's my first talk at 3 a.m. Basically, as you probably already know, I'm based in Australia, and it's too late here. But yeah, today I'll talk about progressive state management with NGXS. But before we get into that, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So yeah, my name is Aliaksei Kuncevič. I am an Angular expert, mentor, and independent consultant. I help companies to adopt Angular in the most efficient way by adopting solid architectures and best practices. I'm also organizing Angular Minsk, Angular Sydney, and front-end tech meetups. Also, I'm running an online and offline Angular workshops and teaching Angular at Kuncevič.dev. I'm also a creator of Frontend Watch, which is an online resource where you can learn more about modern front-end frameworks and see the recent trends. And yeah, and also part of NGXS core team, and I want to thank you everyone in NGXS core team who helped me to prepare this talk. So, back to our topic. Today we will talk about progressive state management. We will cover common problems with a single-page apps and how to solve them. We're not focusing on all problems, just a few specific ones that are related to the talk. Then I will introduce the reactive services approach, and then we will talk about state management and how to take your app from reactive services to NGXS. And also I'll show you a couple of demos. So, reactive state management is a development. So you might wonder what's progressive state management is about, right? So progressive state management is a development process when you're progressively enhancing the functionality of the application state in a way it won't affect the existing data flow and structure of your application. Yeah, that's the term basically I come up in the last months. But yeah, that's basically the idea. Yeah, the idea here is just to keep things simple and to use the right tool for the right job. So initially you start with the reactive services that will grow over time until you're ready to opt in for a state management solution. This approach is good for any small to medium-sized apps, but it also depends on your use case. Also, this approach might be very useful for those who are new to Angular and who are new to state management. So what is the most common problem we're facing when developing single-page applications using Angular? Please comment in the chat. I just wonder, I'm curious, what do you think about that? But here today we're talking about component communication and data flow issue. It's one of the top problems we're facing. When component initiating a change, everything in the application that rely on the change need to update it accordingly. Normally, our apps have a nested component structure like that. All components within the structure interacting with each other in a different manner. Or you might also have a sibling component that needs to interact with other components in the structure. So yeah, the components communication can get really crazy. Here's a simple example of filtering, taken from Angular.io site. Based on the search term in a filter component, the result component needs to be updated with the new data simultaneously. Sometimes we can solve that problem using input and output mechanisms. I think Angular developers are pretty familiar with that. But in case of deep nested components, which you probably have to avoid if you can, but it could be quite tricky. So in that case, it's hard to solve the component communication problem just by using input and output mechanism. It also require, if you do that, it also requires a lot of boilerplate that you had to maintain going forward. So there is another solution for that use case. Let's use reactive services. Reactive services is just a wrapper on top of ArcGIS behavior subject. Using this approach, we can solve the component communication issue very easy and quite elegantly. So let's see the demo. And today's demo will be looking like this. So it's just a simple application with a couple of components in it, nested structured components. Yeah, so basically we can increase the counter in parent, in child, and in the little child. And here in our container component, we can see the sum calculated automatically. And we can reset it. So yeah, that's very simple application, which we're gonna be looking today. So let's see how reactive service actually implemented here. So I have this class called reactive store with a number of functions. here. So yeah, it's pretty simple. We have set functions, we can set state, we can get state as a value, and we can get state as an observable using this state $sign property. And so let's create a let's extend this reactive store. Let's create counter store based on that. So here we have our store represented by this interface with a number of properties on it. And what we do in here, we actually have a number of functions which set the properties, set value 1 and 2 and so on, and also the function which summarizing the values. So how we can consume it inside our components? So that's the components of my application: child, little child, and parent, and the container eventually, which is reactive service component.html. So let's take a look into child, starting from a class first. So we injecting counter store inside our component. So how we get the value updated? Very simple. We have this. We have to call the setValue2 function on a store, and how we would get the latest value? We can just subscribe to the state $sign. So, and the template is looking like that. So here we can call update value with passing -1, which will decrease the counter, update value is 1, which increase the counter, and our value $sign with async pipe. So we pipe in it here. I think you know this technique. So we automatically subscribing to observable, and when component destroyed, we'll get automatic unsubscribe. And all the rest components will look the same. So we updating the value, we subscribing for the value, and so on. And in our container component, yeah, it's pretty much same idea here. But yeah, we don't have to update anything from this component. We just have to subscribe for a sum. And also we can reset the state. So that's it. That's how it looks like. The reactive services approach. And yeah, here, again, there's, to recap, we can increase the counter, and we get all the data magically updated across the application, which is very, very useful approach in this particular scenario. Right. Let's talk about state management now and how it could be helpful to simplify component communication and data flow. By the way, I wonder, what's your favorite state management solution? Please comment in the chat. And boom. So top 4 state management solutions for Angular: NGXS, NGRX, Akita, and yes, you can use MobX with Angular as well. I think you probably already heard most of the names and probably used some of those. So what are the benefits of state management? Using state management, we can simplify the component communication and implement predictable data flow in our application. This way, it make it easier to test and debug the application. We're also able to roll back state, so-called time travel. So really, these days, if you want to time travel, no need to invent a time machine. Just use a state management. So yeah, time travel is pretty cool. You can also apply same consistent practices across the teams. And as a result of that, your team can become more productive and ship new features faster. So now let's talk about NGXS. NGXS is actually, in my opinion, qualified as a progressive state management for Angular application. And you soon will see why. So what is the features of NGXS? NGXS is simple to learn. It has a minimum boilerplate. NGXS is all about Angular thinking or Angular way, right? So as a dependency injection and decorators are the first-class citizens of NGXS, same as in Angular. You can even use promise-based async operators for some edge cases if you need. And also NGXS backed by a great community that you can reach out on a Slack if you have any questions or want to discuss anything or just to say hi. NGXS provides you a global immutable data store. Components can dispatch actions to mutate the data. You can handle the actions once they dispatch. You can select pieces of store data using selectors, then expose the data in a form of observables. Selectors actually are a very powerful concept in NGXS. And if you want to learn more about selectors, you can watch this talk called The Power of Selectors by Matthews Carniato. I will link that in the final slide. Also, you can see NGXS. As you can see, NGXS gives you a predictable cycle, and it's very beneficial in complex apps with a crazy data flow. So, at some point, you might realize you had enough with reactive services in your application, so you don't want to deal with them anymore, and you decide to move away from it to a proper state management solution. So, let's see how to convert our reactive services to NGXS. So that's the next part of demo. I'm referring to the same similar application. So it's looking similarly, but working a little bit differently. So again, it's a counter here, increasing, decreasing the values, and we get a sum. But under the hood, everything is the same, except now we're using NGXS. So we're starting from state. That's how our state looks like. Again, familiar counter interface with it's the shape of our state in that case. Number of actions. Every action is marked with the action decorator, which accepts action class as an input parameter. So here we have now a separate file with all your actions. Actions is just a class with a static property and a constructor with optional parameter. So it's pretty easy to create an actions this way. And yeah, as I think I already mentioned, queries. So queries is very interesting part of NGXS, and it's very powerful. As you can see, I don't have some action here because there is no need in that. And if you open a queries, so I have 3 queries. So I'm interested in value 1, value 2, value 3. So I created 3 queries. And I created this magic selector here, so which is actually looking at the values and summarizing them. So I don't have to write anything, a summary in my state. So yeah, that's how the state looks like in that case. And let's see how actually my components get changed. And actually, there's not much change. So the value changed with the selector. So before we were subscribing on NGInit. So let me remind you that. So before we got that, so value which we subscribe on NGInit, and yeah, so that's the difference now. And we still have this update value, but now instead of actually calling state method this way, we actually dispatching an action which updates the values. So child component, little child component, same idea. So and parent component, same idea here. And if you look into our template, nothing changed much. I mean, it doesn't change at all in this particular case. So let's see, child here. So remember that. And in case of using NGXS store, look, it's all exactly identical. But now the store gives us more power. For this particular example, I mean, there is no need to use state management. But if we spoke about if you talk about mid to big size apps, there is lots of sense in doing that. So yeah, that's how it works. Magic. Right. Now let's talk about NGXS plugins. NGXS has such a thing called plugins, and it is where the progressive part comes. The plugin system allows you to tap into the state changes lifecycle, so you're able to extend the core functionality. Here's a list of plugins built by community that is currently available as NPM packages. So you can just simply NPM install that into your app and get benefit of it straight away. If you want to learn more about plugins, check out this URL, and I will show you how some plugins works in action later. Also, here is such a thing called in NGXS called NGXS Labs. It is a separate organization on GitHub that exists to test out and prototype new ideas and concepts that potentially may become a part of the NGXS core functionality or an official plugin in the future. There is a list of things available right now at NGXS Labs that you can play around, and some of them actually production ready. If you want to learn more about NGXS Labs, check out this URL. And now, as a last thing, I want to show you NGXS data, which is a part of the NGXS Labs. NGXS data is a persistence API based on repository pattern. It has a lot of magic stuff in it. The main benefit of NGXS data is that it has even less boilerplate. So yeah, once you use NGXS data, you write an even less boilerplate if you would just using core NGXS. So if you want to learn more about NGXS data, you can check out this URL. Also, if you want to learn even more about NGXS, you can check out the talk from Max Ivanov, the author of this library. I think I will link this talk on a final slide. I think this talk this talk mentioned in the Russian, but anyway, yeah, if you know the Russian, you can watch it. It will be really helpful for you if you want to learn more about NGXS data. So let's see how it looks, how NGXS data looks in action. It's the last final demo for today. Again, I'm referring to the similar application, looking quite identical. From client-side perspective, the same counter, everything's the same, but under the hood, it looks a little bit different. So remember, in NGXS store, we have this state with the 3 files: actions, queries, and the state. Here, we have actually 1 file, and that's all we got. That's all you have to write to achieve the same functionality. So 3 actions, decorated with data action, and additional function decorated with compute decorator, which calculates the sum. And here, in addition of annotating our state with state decorator, you annotating it with state repository decorator, which comes from NGXS Labs data. So yeah, and let's see what's the is there any difference in components? And yes, there is a bit of difference. As you can see, we're not doing much. We're just injecting the state in the components, that's all. Just to remind you, in case of NGXS store, we've done something. So we're using selectors and we're dispatching, right? In case of NGXS data, we're not doing that. Let's see how our template changed. Actually, it doesn't change much. All what changed is just this line. So instead of subscribing for any observables, here we just call in counter.snapshot.value, which gave us the value. And in case of summary, So that's our container component, and here we just get in some here this way. So yeah, as you can see, it's really less boilerplate. So yeah, you can try to use it if you want in your apps. And lastly, what I want to show you, the plugins. So how does it work? So you, as I already mentioned, you npm install plugins just as npm module, and then what you have to do, you just have to put this line. Like if you want to use Logger plugin, you declare it in imports this way, and if you want, for example, use DevTools plugin, you just import it this way. Small plugins, if you want to use, same pattern applies, npm install, and then import it in app module. So yeah, and the DevTools, so probably some of you who are familiar with Redux, you know this Redux DevTools. So here you are. All you have to do, just one line of code and npm install, and you get this nice plugin, DevTools plugin working. So here, as you can see, we have two states, NGXS state and my NGXS data state. So you can play around and get all the benefits of React DevTools. Did I say React DevTools? I mean Redux DevTools. So, and I don't know why I say React, but anyway. So, and that's the Logger plugin should appear here. So if you changing stuff, you can see the things log in your console. You can explore it. You can see the details of your store this way if you want. So yeah, that's how plugins works. So just to recap, we spoke about progressive state management today, how to approach data flow in Angular applications using reactive services, and then how to convert your reactive services to NGXS. And then we touch on NGXS plugins and NGXS labs, and we play around with NGXS data. So try this approach, and if you like it, I hope it will make you a happier Angular developer. So that's links here. I will add all the rest links I mentioned in the talk, and I share the slides after the meetup with you guys. And again, thank you for listening. Thank you everyone who came from different parts of the world today to watch this meetup online. Thank you, Angular New York, and everyone who was been involved into organizing this meetup. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Alexei. So now I'm going to add all the speakers, and we will answer your questions. So we'll just go through questions from the chat in order. I saw Kostya already answered to some of them in the chat. You can probably just like repeat the summary of what you said. We'll start with the first question from Andrei, who was asking how pre-rendering would work with paging data, for example, virtual scroll bars and fetching from the server in general.
Yeah, the answer is it will render only the first snapshot, and it won't try to scroll this scroll bar. And also, it works perfect with fetching data from the server. It works until everything is loaded.
Hey, Pixie.
Someone saying hello.
So the second question seems also for Konstantin. Somebody has a blogging site with dynamic blogs getting added by users. And the question is like, would there be a good way to pre-render that?
Yeah, actually, if we're able to handle, data changes on the server, for example, it is e-commerce, we can handle that the new product was added. So we can just to generate another page and to add it to our dist. But if it is a lot of blogs and we are not even know when they can be added, I think it is perfect to try from the beginning server-side rendering dynamic server-side rendering, and then try to integrate pre-rendering for some static pages or for some, I don't know, paid pages, something like that.
And then the last pre-rendering question, it's kind of SSR question. So somebody SSR the website, Google picks it up, but the Facebook crawler doesn't. And I think I know the answer. You need some special tags, right, Konstantin?
Yeah, maybe the reason why Facebook doesn't try to fetch data from this block is that OG tag is not set it up.
Cool. And then there was about a question for Aliaksei about the difference between NGXS and GRX, which I'm pretty sure was in some way covered in the slides, right?
I don't have the answer to this question on the slides. I mean, I don't have this slide, but what I can tell, what is the advantage? Look, I mean, it's like you can achieve the same goals with both of them. It doesn't matter which you use. But the difference here is all about thinking. So how you think, how you approach state management, which any of those, right? As I mentioned in the talk, NGXS give you this approaching the problem in Angular fashion, right? So you're applying the same thinking as you would develop Angular application. You're using dependency injection and you're using decorators heavily in case of NGXS. So that's, it's like it's basically different thinking, right? So you think different. You think in one way when you use an NGXS, and you think in different way when you using NGRX. I mean, I can't tell. You can come up with advantages yourself. If you like NGRX, you can think, oh, that's the advantages. And if you like NGXS, you say, oh, actually, there is an advantages, right? So I don't want to get into that right now. But yeah, you can achieve the same outcome using any of the state management, rather it is NGXS or NGRX. So the main one probably NGXS has less boilerplate plate, but I know NGRX team has actually done a little bit of work, so there is now less boilerplate plate and in NGRX, and I think NGXS is a little bit simpler to use and simpler to learn, so it doesn't have this notion of effects. You can do everything using actions. Yeah, that's probably my answer to that. Thanks for your question, by the way. If you want to continue discussing that, you can join Nacho. Hopefully I pronouncing your name right. You can join our Slack and we can discuss there. Thanks.
Cool. And the last question is also for Aliaksei, and it says, will you share some English tutorials which you would recommend for NGXS, async pipe, and dispatch?
Yeah, it's a good question. You probably have to check out the docs, but I'm not sure if... yeah, I can't point you out right now into anything like that, but let me think, and I add a link somewhere, maybe to the slides, to the last slide on my talk, or I'll share the link somehow with you, DJ. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's it for the questions. I would like to thank everyone for coming and speaking. When else would they get an opportunity to get to a Minsk meetup if you live in state? I have a little Max here. Say hi.
Hello.
Yeah, so if there are no questions, thanks everybody. I hope this first test meetup for Angular NYC in the COVID era went well. Yeah.
Actually, I have one question, I think. Yeah. So guys, Ilya and Konstantin, like you were talking about Jamstack today, which is pretty cool topic. And Like, what do you think? If you have, say, this use case, if you have just a simple block, right? You have a list of blocks posts which you fetching from, say, GraphQL API, right? So which approach would you recommend to go, universal or Scully for this particular case? I'm talking about you have an Angular app, right? So you have Angular app, like listing blog posts, like you can go click details, you can read the blog post, and all your blogs coming from some APIs. So you at some point you decide, hey, I want to actually pre-render it. I don't want to deal with the server. I want to turn it off. I just want to pre-render everything during the build time and just publish it like that. Yeah. What do you think about?
You mean like you want a special, I don't know, panel which allows you to to mark all of the new pages which you want to render, something like that, or it will be rendered all of the pages during build time.
Right, and say you want to go to database to fetch. So you want to execute all your services, right, to fetch the data. So all that magically will be executed during the build time, right, using universal Prerender. But what's the story with the Scully? How would you? Is there any difference? How would you approach that with the Scully?
I think both approaches are considerable. Yeah, it also depends on which format of data you have. Yeah, as you mentioned, for example, for GraphQL API, I know that Gatsby works like that. It provides GraphQL API and at build time it render all pages. So I don't know, plugin for Scully for GraphQL probably is not yet ready, but it's not so hard to implement it. Yeah, also the second point here is that if you have really a lot of pages, probably universal is the better way, because some benchmarks that I've seen on the internet says that Scully is a bit not good with a lot of data, a lot of pages. Universal.
So say if you write in Daily Telegram or some news site with millions of stories, right? Scully would actually. What would be the problem when you pre-render the million pages of such website? Is it performance issues or?
Yeah, it's performance issue at build time. Yeah, as I know, Gatsby has already solved this problem, because Gatsby knows what pages were already generated, and you don't need to regenerate them. But for Scully, it's not yet. This feature is not yet ready. So it means that every time when you're built,
you will go everything, right?
Yeah.
I know. I see. Yeah.
Yeah, I want just to add. Yeah, and actually, maybe it will be the answer on the Artyom Lenov question. Yeah, I want just to add that the difference between Scully and Angular Prerender is that Scully really it executes Chrome headless browser, and it renders naturally everything on the page, and then it saves the snapshot of your page. But Angular works in the other way. It's based on Angular Universal, so it doesn't open any pages. That's why there is a difference between generating pages. But yeah, answering on the question of Artyom, what the benefits of? Let me just start from the benefits of Angular Prerender, and then Ilya will continue. I think that the benefit of Prerender is this speed of generating files, and also, as far as I know, there are less bugs, and it is more like Angular way feature, which is easy to insert in your project. So very low threshold, and it is easy to try.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, benefits from Scully. It's like downsides of Universal, but not maybe outsides, but differences. I mean, yeah, if you don't want to change your existing Angular app and you just want to integrate some third-party stuff and get your static pages, so Scully is a good way to get it. But also I can share you also after our discussion some benchmarks and yeah, for really for example for 10,000 items for 10,000 pages, Universal will faster like 10 times probably.
Right.
Yeah, but as far as I mentioned, it's fresh, it's in development, but for small projects, it's okay.
Yeah, they will get there, right, at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Cool. All right. Any last words before we say bye?
Yeah.
No.
Thank you again.
All right.
Thank you, and
yeah, thank you all again.
Thank you for all speakers. And could you, Konstantin, please send my thank you to your dog?
Of course.
All right. Cool. I am turning.
And my thanks to your cat.
Right. Bye, everyone.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Cool. All right. This concludes our first experimental stream. Please ping me on Twitter or ping AngularNYC on Twitter if you want to speak on one of the future events. Now that we started, we'll do more of them. Have a good day, everybody. Bye-bye.